Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome, guys. That's right. Miss Liz is in the house, and I have an incredible guest in the back. I have Dr. David Schein in the background, and we just talked just before we went live, and it's the third time he's with me. So he was with me for, this is his second tea time, but he was also with the reunion show. As many of you know, Miss Liz did the farewell show, but Miss Liz is back, and I am in my seat, and I am serving tea again. So I really want to thank all of my returning guests, including David today, for coming and sitting and having tea with me today. But as you all can see, Miss Liz has changed the letter A to E, but we still have tea in Germany. So if you Google that and you check that out, you'll see that I'm still serving tea. So Miss Liz just switches it up and keeps you on your toes. So before we get started, we're going to get you over to Miss Liz's Spotify channel and the YouTube channel. Give that a quick follow and subscribe, and you can watch all of these tea times, including David's first tea time. And we're going to switch it up today. We're going to bring some different topics to the table so that we can get some different content out there for all of you guys out there. So Miss Liz has done her homework, and I have some good surprises. Also, I would like all of my listeners out there to know that today David is joining me on his birthday. So I want to wish David a happy birthday for that. I am really honored when they want to spend their special days with me. So I want to thank David for that. So when we get him on the stage, we're going to give a big shout out for happy birthday wishes out to David from all Miss Liz's listeners out there. But before we get started, you all know how it works. Disclaimer, and then a little intro, and then the guest comes in and we spill tea together. And today's tea that we have is Excelor, interested and helpful. That's right. We don't serve a beverage. We serve words. So we'll get that in there. And we do have a guest in the house today. Tinkerbell is in here. I guess she snuck in. So disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real-life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guest viewers and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to the discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including, but not limited to, trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotional triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or any content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me at my email, bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate and comment on or view these shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. Miss Liz welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is a serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Now let me give you a little bit on David for all the viewers out there that are wondering who is sitting in the background. Today on Tea Time, I'm honored to welcome back David Schein, an author, educator, and thought leader who brings knowledge, integrity, and action to the table. With a background in law, business, and ethics, David has spent his career guiding others towards leadership that truly makes a difference. This afternoon, he joins us to share his perspectives on resilience, courage, and what it means to step up in times of change. Together, we'll explore his powerful topics: saving America, knowledge, leadership, action. Let's give a warm welcome to David Schein on Teatime. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much, Miss Liz. That was a wonderful introduction, and it's a delight to be back with you. And of course, I especially appreciate my birthday greeting. My phone has been going crazy today, and a lot of people have remembered my birthday, which is kind of cool. Though, unfortunately, I'm reaching that point in my life where it's like, oh my God, no, not another birthday.
Those birthdays are nice to see, but they're also nice to see them go, right? Especially when you get to those higher numbers.
Well, I'm working to reverse those numbers somehow. And as you know, I'm a very active individual, and back at the gym and doing tango and, getting out there and getting after it.
Well, look at you at the gym and tango. We'll have to go dancing sometime there, me and you, David.
Absolutely.
So, David, for all my listeners who are tuning in for the first time, tell us a little bit on who David was as a little guy and who's David now.
Well, as I tell people, sometimes it sounds like a story tale because I have so much advanced education and have done a lot of different things. But I started from very, very modest beginnings. I'm the oldest of 7 children from a military family. My dad was career enlisted, which meant that he didn't make very much money. And that was pretty tough with 7 kids. And so my mom had a GED. My dad had a high school vocational degree. And my mom worked very hard to keep the household together. And my dad was very dedicated to the military. He often, when he was on shore leave, he was in the Navy, he did work a second job to try and bring at least a little bit of money in. And so it was, but my parents inspired me with a particular direction that influenced all of us in the family. And that was that education was the path forward, the path out of it. And it does seem to have worked out that way because 6 of us not only finished college, but we have, I have a brother who has similar credentials to mine, a PhD and a JD, and I have a sister with a Ivy League undergraduate degree, a master's from MIT, and a PhD from another distinguished institution. And it's just that, and everybody else at least finished college. So my parents' influence certainly had a tremendous impact, and I do credit other people along the way. I was in a Catholic school K through 8th grade, and my mom was a volunteer. On top of everything else she did, she was a volunteer with the church. And I think the nuns gave us a little extra credit for my mom's great efforts. And they showed a little bit extra attention. And, sometimes teachers helping students taking that extra step forward, I think makes a big impact.
Absolutely. Teachers do make an impact in our lives. And I want to get into that because what teacher influenced you the most, David?
Oh my gosh. It's in each generation. So like I said, in K through 8, it was the nuns who really across the board took a personal interest. And to give you an idea, I flunked 2 consecutive grades, not because I couldn't do the work, but because of the little lack of focus, as a lot of young boys do, and things like that. And the nuns went ahead and passed me anyway. And I think that's very important in that early stage because their confidence that I was there, that I knew the stuff and I was on top of things, and just a little bored and a little unfocused, made a big difference because by the time I got to about 7th grade, the lights came on, the focus came on. And then by the time I got to senior high school, I was I came in number 2 out of 2,700 students. What can I say? And so obviously their confidence at an earlier point inspired me at a later point. My high school physics teacher was a great inspiration for me. My high school advanced English teacher was a great inspiration. And college was a little bit different. I have 2 books out on political management, but my current book is a book about my college experience. And it's kind of an oxymoron. It's called A Cheap Education. It's not out yet. I'm way behind, but it's a play on words because I attended the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school. I went there because it was an Ivy League school, and I'd won a full scholarship, and it was not a good fit for me. It was already in the process of people feel I've been criticized for using the term woke because some of my liberal friends feel that woke is an unfair, undefined definition. But what else can I say? UPenn, who of course has been in the news a great deal over the last several years, has got some mega problems. And it was a bad fit for me, especially this was during the Vietnam War. And here you've got these students out there, protesting the Vietnam War and being very anti-military. And here I am, the son of a career enlisted military officer. My dad was a chief yeoman. And I felt very uncomfortable. Also, quite different spin on things. And I tell people about the book to get people interested. I tell them the book was written during the times of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And there was a lot of drugs on the Penn campus at the time I went there. And I am a lifetime anti-drug person. I am, I've had several surgeries, including one 7 weeks ago today. And I only took 3 days of prescription drugs. And I mean, that's how hardcore I am. It's like,
yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, get me off of this stuff as soon as I can. I don't want to get addicted to it.
Absolutely. And I think that we need to do that more across our society, because I think, the slightly different topic, of course, is the incredible level of fentanyl and fentanyl deaths in the United States, but it takes 2 to tango. The Mexican cartels working with the Chinese suppliers are getting the stuff in here, but the American people are still buying it. If we'd stop buying it, we'd fix the problem from the other end. But of course we've just been through the OxyContin scandal. And so I do have a lot of concern about that we need to focus on our health. And I know that you personally are concerned about your health and about doing the best that you can. And I think all of us who are responsible people, we need to bring our kids up thinking about health. Let's put the computer and the iPad and everything down, and let's get out there and be active. And I'm hoping that we're going to swing back in that direction.
Absolutely. David, I did some homework on you, and you have a fundraiser going for your birthday today. Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because that really surprised me, because I'm dealing with diabetes and you're doing a fundraising for diabetes. So it kind of was like, oh, let's get into this.
Well, I want to tell people how that happened, because it isn't anything that I initiated. Apparently on Facebook, if they see your birthday coming up and you're registered on Facebook, they say to you, oh, well, do you want to run a GoFundMe? And if you do, who do you want? And unfortunately, we do have among my mother's 20 or so grandchildren. If you have 7 children, you can have a pretty good number of grandchildren. We do have one of my sister's children, the youngest of her 5 children, it has type 1 diabetes. And so the family has focused on that. And so it was an easy choice when Facebook said, well, who would you register? And the Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund is very important. And she's been very fortunate in that she is in a generation where she has an insulin pump and has the remote monitoring that they do today and things like that. So she is certainly doing well. and in fact just had a baby. And so I want to take the time to wish her and her mom, my sister, all the best, because it is a lifetime commitment, as you personally know, to deal with type 1. The neat thing about it is that in past generations, type 1 diabetes wasn't necessarily a death sentence, as some people sometimes label that, but I think it did mean a shortened lifespan. But with the modern things that we have going on today, I think we're doing a lot better. I have a friend who she and her common law husband and I were personal friends for 50 years, starting with a cheap education. This was my best friend from college, and he and his lady friend, who was a type 1 diabetic, had a wonderful relationship, and it was my pleasure to be associated, my honor to be associated with him. And she passed away relatively recently, but lived what was considered for her generation a normal lifespan. And actually, sadly, when my friend Al died first, she stopped doing the things that had helped her be healthy for a long period of time. And that's, of course, as you know, part of the challenge. Any of us who have a health challenge like diabetes, like Parkinson's or something, we have to stay on track and do the best we can. I was, for some reason, in my particular biosystem, I have naturally high blood pressure, just not horrible, but higher than they would have liked to have seen all the way back to when I was a teenager. And about 35 years ago, yes, I decided that I needed to take control of it. And a couple of the things, one of the things that was recommended at that time was that I go on a low salt diet. And was already a cook. And part of one of the oddball things that I am good at is cooking very flavorful food with no salt at all. And
that's something I got to work on, because I'm big on my salt.
Yes, and well, you know what? It depends on your body system and all that. For my better half, she has historically low blood pressure, so she can salt the heck out of her food, and she's fine. So I fix all the food in the household with no salt, and then she salts hers, and I use potassium chloride, which is readily available today. And I've adjusted to the flavor of that, because it does a slightly different taste than sodium chloride, normal salt. But the idea is that I was very committed to that, and I still am. I have a kitchen that is uniquely seasonings and things that are, I tend to buy the original seasoning, not a mixture. So like I make my own curry powder. If I'm making an Indian chicken dish, I actually use a curry powder that I made myself with the natural ingredients, but without the sodium. Because if you buy a lot of this stuff in the store, like taco seasoning or curry powder, it tends to have salt actually as its number one ingredient, not just added on for flavor. So I do tend to, kind of push that. And I do also focus on low saturated fat as a way of doing a natural cholesterol reduction. But I went for 30 years without taking BP medicine, and now I take a very small quantity. Interesting reason, because even though I am healthy enough that I normally test my own blood pressure and it comes in okay, when I go to the doctor, a lot of times it's a little high. They call that white coat syndrome.
Oh.
But I'll tell you what my PCP said: I don't care. If it's ever high, I'm worried. So they have me on a very tiny dose of a very cheap generic medicine just to make sure that it behaves itself. And I'm very good about that. And, a lot of us I'm a big vitamin person, is one of the things that you'll see people that'll have a big bottle of vitamins on the table and a couple other supplements. And they'll be like, every fourth day they might take them, or take some of them, but not all of them. And one of the things I do recommend to people is if you're on a particular regimen, be it low salt, low sugar, whatever it is, you need to do it every day. If vitamins taken randomly don't help, if you take hopefully if the vitamins are helping you, you need to take a vitamin at least 6 out of 7 days. And yet I think those are the kind of things when we were talking a minute ago about developing a healthier society. Those are the type of things. And responding to diabetes, I had an uncle married to one of my dad's sisters who was a very careless diabetic. And he sadly, again, this is a prior generation, had both legs amputated before he passed away. But that didn't have to happen even in that generation.
Yeah. Well, David, I want to put it in because, advocating for our health is a form of leadership as well, right? That we don't talk about, be the leader of our own lives, change the way we think. But it also goes into politics as well, right? Because politics, how we lead, how we serve, how we take care of our communities and countries and that as well, right? So that goes back into the books that you've written, because you've written 2 books and you just shared that you've got a new book coming out. That I always love when my guests share the new stuff coming out because I get first dibs, guys.
Absolutely.
But David, you wrote Bad Deals for America and The Decline of America. I'm going to pull those books up so you can share a little bit on them. Which one did you write first?
I wrote Decline of America, 100 Years of Leadership Failures, was released in 2018. And this was a big exploration for me. People ask me, how I came about it. And America basically began the American empire following World War I. We became the dominant world power. I think American exceptionalism goes back prior to the Revolutionary War, but we weren't recognized around the world. And I think the launching pad was Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents, but he's not in the book because he may have laid the groundwork, but he was not part of the American empire. So we started with Woodrow Wilson. And at the time the book was written, Barack Obama was just finishing his second term as president. So the book does end with Barack Obama. We are planning a replacement volume that will include Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And we're going to change the title and change the formatting a little bit. But the idea is that American exceptionalism comes from the power, the hard work, and the diversity of the American people. Sadly, not because we've had great presidents. Yeah. And and being a college professor, I gave them all letter grades, and the highest letter grade was a B-. And the only F grade, in fairness, was Richard Nixon. But the B- was for Harry Truman. And it was designed to be a nonpartisan book. Although if you think about it, the only F grade was Republican. The highest grade was a Democrat. Many Democrats feel that it's a very political book because of the grades that I gave the more recent presidents, both Republican and Democrat. But the idea is to encourage people to think about who they're voting for, how we got to where we are. But some of the criticism I have includes the fact that we've fought several wars and we've killed tens of thousands of our wonderful Americans and other people, and we've accomplished very little other than probably Desert Storm is about the only war that we fought since World War II that we can really say we went in there, we did the job, and we went home. That's, to me, that's what we should be doing. And I note that we have hardly anybody in politics today who actually served in the military. And maybe if they did, they might be a little bit more respectful of our wonderful, and I'm going to just use the term boys and girls who are out there fighting, because it's not people my age who are out there in the trenches. And we've wasted a great deal of them and a great deal of American assets. So I'm hoping that we're going to be more careful going forward. And part of that is electing better leaders.
So, David, when you wrote that book, The Decline of America, with the leaders, what president surprised you the most with your research?
Oh gosh. Well, one of the things that people don't anticipate is the president who didn't get the lowest grade, but who I am most critical is Franklin Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt, in my opinion, did the most damage to the country. And people say, well, why didn't you give him an F grade or D minus? And it's because he did help America get through the Great Depression. He did help America get through World War II, but he made some grievous errors that have haunted us ever since. One is the bloated bureaucracy that America suffers from today. And in fact, that's, as you know, the Doge and Elon Musk and, a lot of this stuff is the hangover that we're suffering, generations and generations later. But the other one is that as World War II ended, the two great leaders of the world, which were Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt, allowed Stalin on the podium with them. And if you see I'm drawing a blank on the name of the meeting, the Minsk meeting or whatever it was called, at the end of World War II, is the three of them hung out. And what it did is it took a brutal murderer. I mean, let's not mince words. Stalin is, in history, one of the worst murderers of all time, and may have murdered on purpose more people than Hitler did. And that's something that we tend to step over because Roosevelt said, oh, welcome to the podium. You're on our side. But so those are the two critical mistakes that I think were made that have cursed us ever since, because, Putin wouldn't be who he is if we hadn't allowed Stalin to, join the world stage and not been recognized. I mean, we're at the same time we're out, trying to exterminate Al Capone and the gangsters in Chicago. And Stalin was worse than any gangster that we've ever had in the United States, easily. So that was, part of my concern. Harry Truman got the B+ because despite losing the Korean War, which is essentially what happened, you fight to a draw, you lost. And we lost over 50,000 Americans in the Korean War. And now we've got a nuclear power in North Korea with the little dictator over there. And that was a clear failure by Harry Truman. But other than that, Truman did a handful of positive things. But it was more about his attitude, is that he was a straight talker and he wasn't a real politician. And I think a lot of the people we've elected to the White House have been politicians and not great leaders. And so that's a bit of my concern.
So David, I want to talk to you about sweeping the history under the rug, because there's so much history that people do not know about until we have these conversations like we're having today, right? My viewers and listeners out there may be wondering what this story is that you're sharing about the biggest murder, bigger than Hitler, Hitler's on the top of the list, but let's talk about the people we're sweeping under the carpet and get those stories out there so listeners can know about them as well.
I am concerned not just for that, but around the world. Is that a very different example? I was Karen and I went to Africa several years ago, and we went to 4 countries. We ended in South Africa. And we went to 3 major cities, and we also went to a safari park in the country of South Africa, which is a huge country. And one of the things that I learned in Johannesburg and Cape Town was the level of devastation that the Dutch English rulers committed to the predominantly Black population. And some of the things that I don't think we focused enough on the United States is the fact that apartheid was put in 1948. Now, if you think about it, in 1946, Harry Truman desegregated the military. That's right. In the United States, we fought World War II with a segregated military. That's unthinkable to me, but I credit Harry Truman with recognizing that. And that was one of the first things he did when he replaced Franklin Roosevelt, of course, died in office. But turning to South Africa, I don't think we Americans really were given the story of how horrible it was there, and the deprivation of normal necessities, the deprivation of human rights that took place in South Africa during this modern time period. That's why I emphasize 1948. I mean, this wasn't, 1780 or 1790. This was in the modern era, in my opinion, post-World War II. And specifically, there is a special museum in Johannesburg that's dedicated to the 700 school children who were ruthlessly murdered by the South African government for protesting the actions of the government. They just gunned all these little kids down, the high school kids and youngsters. And I didn't know that until I physically went to the square, and they have a museum now that is specifically dedicated to this horrendous situation that took place. They didn't all get killed at one time, but apparently there were a series of protests, and the military, in a desperate attempt to maintain control, killed these protesters. Not like in the United States, where we may use tear gas or round them up, and usually we arrest them and release them. But I mean, we're talking, killing people, and just as if they were nothing. So, and Stalin is a parallel story. Of course, we now have, in my opinion, simply another. And pardon the expression, I want to be clear about this. I grew up during the Cold War. We never used the term communist. We always used the term dirty commie. Forever. That was the way we grew up during the Cold War, because it was clear those people wanted us dead. Not the Russian people, not the enslaved people of Poland and Czechoslovakia and the other members who were unwillingly forced to be part of the Iron Curtain, East Germany. And the circumstance was very difficult. But what we do know that happened behind the Iron Curtain is that Stalin systematically slaughtered people who were not willing to accede to his jurisdiction. And of course, many of those people were not in Russia, but were in the countries I just mentioned that Russia took over following World War II because of the stupidity of Franklin Roosevelt. The reason I keep focusing on FDR, first of all, he's American, but secondly, I think based on what I've read about Winston Churchill, he was not in agreement with that, but he only had one vote at the table. Franklin Roosevelt had the other vote, and obviously the U.S. military under Eisenhower and its generals was in charge of the military. So if the decision was made, oh, well, Stalin fought with us right at the end of the war, we ought to give him a seat at the table. The Americans made that decision, that fatal decision, in my opinion. And if you trace the history of communism throughout the world, it is a history of death and destruction. And again, the great leap forward in China under Mao Zedong, the estimated death toll from that is 50 million people. The estimated death toll with Stalin, because there's no official number, is between 8 and 10 million. So we're talking, very, very serious things. And of course, most of the stuff never worked. And the reason it's relevant today, and the reason we need to get our school system understanding what happened, is that you have a communist. Let's stop calling him a Democrat socialist. That's an idiotic term. When you're talking about what his principles are, including, let's take things away from white wealthy people. That's what he said. That's exactly how he said it, Mamdani, and running for mayor of New York City. And I find it hilarious that you have a city that is the home to capitalism around the world. It's the home of Wall Street and the stock markets and so forth, that they would have a clown like this who has won the Democrat primary and is considered the leading candidate. Polls are showing him, winning election. And less publicized is the mayor's race in Minneapolis with another person who is basically presenting, less visible, but presenting the same type of platform as the Democrat candidate for mayor in Minneapolis. And I think people need to wake up. The problem is that we have had a lot of socialist influence across our education system. I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but as a college professor, I can tell you, I have taught at about 10 different colleges, and I have seen a lot of what the colleges are doing, including my own school, the University of Pennsylvania undergrad. I have 2 degrees from the University of Virginia. Virginia itself, which you would think, oh, it's in Virginia, and Glenn Youngkin's the current governor, and it's going to be a red state and all that. Actually, not so true. And they have been far enough out there that there's actually a group called, I think it's called the Jefferson Society at the University of Virginia, of former alumni who are lobbying to get that school back away from the edge of the wokeness that has taken over the school. And the president of the University of Virginia resigned abruptly. He had given notice he was going to leave the office a year from now. He sped it up to about 6 or 7 weeks ago. And there's a fair amount of rejoicing on the part of alumni like myself who feel that the university has gone far too left. And the concern about that is you're not presenting a balanced view of some of the horrible things that have happened under communism. So it's, I am concerned, and I don't think the students who've come through the last generation or two have been given a very fair presentation of why what I call a regulated capitalist system is a terribly flawed system, but it's a whole lot better than the alternatives that we're faced with. So it's just, it's a tough go out there, but I'm hoping that we're changing the discussion right now, that I think things are coming out. That doesn't mean the Mamdani won't win the New York mayor's race, but I think what I'm hearing, which I find very interesting, is that there are a lot of conservatives out there who are actually rooting for Mamdani because they expect it to be such a car wreck that even though he doesn't have the legal authority to do many of the things that he has suggested, that I think that whatever he does try is going to have some colossal impact. So there's a lot going on out there.
Right. And David, you mentioned a lot of things, right? The educational systems, how we're teaching our children, how we're getting the history out there. We're sweeping a lot of stuff under the carpet, and we're just putting a pretty rainbow on it and saying, oh, no, that's a long time ago. Forget about that. But we're repeating history because we're not learning about the history. We're not understanding the history. So all we're doing is repeating. We're doing this vicious circle of coming back and repeat. And then we put a pretty bow on it, and we just say, well, that was years ago. That was decades ago. Let's just forget about it. Let's just create a new kind of chaos and division. And, there's so much unbalance in the world. And you mentioned that we need balance, and we don't have balance right now. I'm in Canada, and and I'm watching my neighbors falling apart, and my country as well is falling apart. So how do we get the balance back into the world? Is by understanding the history, by learning the true history, not sweeping it under the carpet and saying, no, that happened years ago. We're not going to talk about that anymore. We're just going to sweep it under the carpet. And that's why I love having guests like you on the platform, David, getting the stories out there, getting the truth out there. And, and the truth hurts. We need to hear how it hurt. We killed people, our own people. And we're sweeping it under the carpet and saying, no, let's just forget about that. Let's just carry on with today's circus, right? With the clowns that we have today. And yes, Miss Liz said it. We have clowns running our countries. We have no good leaders because they do not understand the fought for the freedom, the fought for the leadership, because there's no more leadership anymore. It's about who has the most likes and loves out there. Social media, viral, the trends. Like, let's forget about that and start bringing back leadership. And I want to talk about your next book that you wrote as well. It's called The Bad Deal of America. I'll pull that book up and share a little bit about that one as well, David, because I want to get your books out there, because I want people to honestly start reading some good stuff.
Thank you. And I want to give credit to Mike Lynn, who is the artist for a popular brewery of all things, and he was introduced to me, and we had some great discussions. And he designed the book cover and also the artwork that's inside the book. The book is printed in 3 colors to capture a traditional set of playing cards, or in traditionally white, blue and red against a white background, and it's a lot of fun. But again, the objective of this book is very hardcore, nonpartisan. I don't think the argument for term limits is a partisan argument. I think both parties should support the concept that we have a representative government. We need people to come home and live under the laws that they create, not stay in Washington, not be 50-year bureaucrats. And when I hear some of the people in Washington, Democrat and Republican, I'm saying to myself, what universe, what planet are they living on? They're not connected to the average American. And, they have the first third of the book is about how much money that they have available in addition to their salaries, which are not trivial. Their salaries are about 2 to 3 times the average American family income. This is one person working. $175,000 a year is more than the vast majority of Americans make. And they say, oh, we're not making enough. And then we point out all the free postage and the gym memberships and the benefits they get, and on and on and on and on. So it took a while. It took about a year for us to, not like one transparent source, this is what a senator has available. You have to go look this up because they don't want you to know. Again, I'm not trying to sound like conspiracy theorists.
You got to do the research, right, David?
Yeah.
If you don't research, they're just going to throw you under the bus, and they're going to say, "Oh, don't worry, don't look at that." Let's divide you with other stuff. Let's take you away from the truth.
So we gave each, and I had to. By the way, I don't gamble, so I actually had to go out and buy a deck of playing cards so I could lay the book out. So I had the idea. People say, "Well, how'd you get the idea?" Well, I just was driving around. I'm a thoughtful person. I think all the time about books and articles and things. And so I had to go buy a deck of cards and say, okay, this is how, okay, now I know. And by the way, if you buy a brand name deck of cards, the design of the spades and the kings and the queens are trademarked, not just patented, but trademarked, or not just copyrighted. And so that's why we had Mike Lynn, the artist, design the playing cards as well, because we wanted to own our own material and not have to pay a licensing fee or risk violating somebody else's license. I'm very respectful of copyrights and trademarks. So in any event, we put that together, but it is 26 Republicans and 26 Democrats and independents. I put the independents over there because the independents that we're talking about, like Bernie Sanders, he's really a Democrat, but he calls himself an independent. I mean, we just face the reality. And each person has a playing card. The more visible people have a face card, queens and kings and jacks. Okay. Those are the people that we know best, that we hear the most about. And like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Grassley, Joe Biden, those folks are, some of the people that we hear the most about. And these are direct quotations, not dressed up. We give you the citation to each and every quotation attributed to each and every one of the 53 politicians, because we do we have a joker. So that's the 53rd card. But the idea was to let people see in their own words how oddball, and we picked things for 2 reasons. They were ridiculous, or they were so funny when you read them. And I want to be fair. We came across a politician out of California. He was a former congressman. He's now deceased, called Bob Dorman. He said some things that were so offensive in today's society that we couldn't put them in the book.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I didn't want the book to get banned. I mean, but they were like,
no, we don't want the book banned. There's enough books being banned that shouldn't be banned. Like just book banning thing that's going on. I'm just like,
absolutely.
What are we doing? Like,
this would have gotten the book banned in a few places. Let me just say that. And again, we researched it, and like this guy said some really things. And I talked to somebody the other day who knew who Bob Dorman was, and he said, "Well, that sounds like Bob Dorman." So, but the thing is that you've got these folks that saying some pretty crazy stuff, and we're not only paying them, we're paying them for many years. And it's like, what were you thinking? One of the arguments, by the way, for the 175,000, and you'll see repeatedly these folks will say, "Oh, well, we're being underpaid, and it's so expensive because we have to live in the expensive city of DC, and then we have to live in our home district." And of course, we got a lot of controversy about that with with Schiff having his personal residence in California and his personal residence in the DC area. But he picked up on that. That was part of the mortgage fraud allegation is, oh, I have to have a house and you can only, under the mortgage rules, you can only have one principal residence. And of course, that's the allegation against Schiff, is that he has two. And that's his rationale. Well, I have to live in Washington and all that. And my argument is, first of all, I want term limits, but also while you're limited term in Washington, I want you to live in your home district. I want you to have a limited number of meetings in Washington, D.C. In fact, my proposal is we take a couple old hotels and turn them into dormitories. And when you absolutely positively have to be there, you check in at the Sam, the Sam Walton Washington Hotel, and you get a $45 a night room. And
yeah, $45 a night room instead of a $4,500 room.
Exactly. But we need people to stay there. And, with WhatsApp and Zoom and all of the other stuff, and WhatsApp, by the way, is an encrypted operation. One reason the hucksters and the bad guys want to use WhatsApp is because it's encrypted. But these folks could certainly have most of their meetings. I had a very special opportunity that supported both of the books that I've written. From 99 to 2001, I was in Washington, D.C. I actually lived in Alexandria, Virginia, and I had special access to Washington, D.C. I could walk in this Rayburn office building pretty much as I wished. I was active with something called the Texas Society, which is a great group in Washington, D.C. And I got a chance to meet lobbyists in the real world, as in got to go to events when lobbyists gave tickets to a congressman who didn't use them. I got to go to the event and meet the lobbyist and see the game plan. And by making these politicians stay home in their home districts, it's going to make it harder for these lobbyists to get to them. Won't insulate them, but they're going to have to come to Texas and come to California and not concentrate them all in one place where the lobbyists can just go door to door to door to get things that may be good for A or B and C, but maybe not so good for the American people. And of course, this is today, as we speak this morning, there was a very, very heated and controversial Senate hearing with RFK Jr. regarding vaccines and the terminations in the CDC and a lot of that stuff going on. We're not going to start on that today, by the way. But
that's a whole new tea time.
Absolutely. But part of the pitch there was that these people in Washington are in the pockets of big pharma. Now, whether that's true or not, we're not going to debate that today, but I'm just saying the point is it'd be a lot harder if you're being lobbied by big pharma or whoever you're being lobbied by, if you had to go out to 50 states than to have everybody concentrated in DC and all that. Also, they'd have less rationale for wanting more money because the big pitch is, I can't live in 175,000 because I have to live in DC and I have to have a house in my district. And the reality is many of these people no longer have homes in their district for financial reasons. They come home and stay in hotels and stuff and pretend to live in their district when they've really, vacated and they don't come back afterwards. So I think it's important that we have representative democracy in a real meaningful sense.
Exactly. And all of this money that we can't live like this, we can't live like that. Well, try living like the everyday American person or the everyday Canadian person, and then come and tell me, oh, can you live on it? Kind of give them like a taste of what we actually live, not just pretend that they understand what we lived through, right? Like you said, you were the oldest of 7 children. Your family struggled, to make ends meet. And then you have these people coming and saying, well, you know what? I can't live on $175,000. Well, how about the people that are living under $20,000 a year? We're not talking about those people. And those are American people too. Those are Canadian people too, as well, right? And for my listeners out there, yes, I do have Americans on my platform. I have people from all over the world, because these are things that are affecting all of the world. Leaders around the world right now are not concerned about their people. They're concerned about themselves. They're concerned about what they can get and how much likes and loves they can get, or how many trends they can create. It's turned into a real circus around the globe.
It has, and it's very sad. And I am hopeful that this is going to be a short-term situation, and it's going to get better, because it is indeed threatening. I did want to talk a few minutes about Canada. First of all, my mother's mother came from Canada, and got her U.S. citizenship fairly late in life, believe it or not, because she kept going back to Canada, and then that messed up her citizenship.
But you know what? It's always nice to come back to Canada.
Absolutely. So they came out of the Toronto area, so there's still in-laws and cousins and stuff in Toronto and Montreal. And I had some great visits there when I was a kid, visiting with my mom's family up there. And I am a big fan of Canada. I do not want it to be part of the United States. I respect it as a sovereign country. And I think that was a massive, massive error by Trump. And of course, Trump famously shoots his mouth off and doesn't always engage the mental processes behind it. And that was, I think, one of the huge gaffes that he did. And it had a very unfortunate effect, is that you have a president who, I don't care what these guys do and shake hands, the guy, your prime minister, hates Donald Trump, hates his guts. I fear no contradiction of that in reality. And the reality is, you guys were about to elect a conservative who might have helped turn Canada's finances around. And people in Canada justifiably got so upset at Trump's ramblings that they deliberately voted for the guy they said would be opposite to Trump. So it's very sad, because I do have some close friends. I will tell you, this morning, one of my friends from Guelph, a suburb of Toronto, sent me a LinkedIn post talking about the crime problem in Canada, and how the liberal jurisdictions have multiplied the crime problem, which is the exact same thing you're hearing people say about many American cities, that the so-called Soros DAs elected with liberal money from the Soros campaign funds, have stopped cash bail, have stopped keeping people in jail who are really, really bad people, and have stopped sentencing people for serious crimes to serious time. And so Canada and the United States shares that sad legacy. So I do hope that Canada will be able to get back on a better track, because I do feel for people in Canada, and I know that financially, I lived near Canada. I grew up in the Northeast, and again, my mom's mom was from Canada, so we didn't think anything much of going into Canada. And it used to always be that the Canadian dollar, a U.S. dollar was worth $1.05 to a Canadian dollar. There was a 5-cent difference. And I bitterly remember being a tourist in Canada, in Quebec, Right about 15 years ago, I went to the Quebec Winter Carnival. And at the time, the Canadian dollar was worth more than an American dollar. That's a very, very rare situation. And in fact, I remember cab drivers refusing American dollars. They would only take Canadian dollars during that brief time when the Canadian dollar was worth more. But to see the Canadian dollar worth 66 cents to the American dollar, that's a stunning situation. And my recollection, that's been true for over 5 years, maybe longer. I don't know when it happened, but that's a reflection of the strength of the Canadian dollar at a time when the American dollar is weak, which means if the American dollar was strong, it might be an even bigger delta. So I just want to close that out and just say I'm very hopeful that Canada, wonderful, beautiful country that it is, will make some progress on the political front, hopefully parallel to the United States.
Well, I hope we become neighbors again, because there's so much division right now with all of this.
Well, we're neighbors. I don't know about these cats in the government, but
right?
Remember
we don't know about these leaders, but we want to become neighbors again. We want to be able to, be able to travel and see family, because some family have moved to the States, some have moved to Canada, and now with everything going on, people are scared to travel.
Yes.
David, we're coming to the end. What is your final words for all of the listeners out there? And tell them where they can get your book and all that good stuff and find you as well.
Well, first of all, I encourage all of us to tone down the rhetoric. People may say, well, gee, I just heard what you said. I don't think that's very kind. But I think it's really important that we have respectful discussions and that we tone down the rhetoric. Our society, just speaking for the United States right now, has become a violent society, has become an intolerant society where we do not talk in productive terms about our differences. And remember, our similarities are much greater than our differences, and we seem to have lost track of that. So I do encourage everyone to, think, be thoughtful, make friends with your neighbors of any political persuasion, and engage in productive things. I encourage parents to do what my parents did. Focus on your kids' education. Don't let the school system be the only source. And if your school system is really out of whack, I encourage you to put your kids in a school system that are respectful. Cute, quick story. Relatives in Boston, I've got 3 wonderful little grandchildren there. They're Jewish. They are in a Catholic school right now. They could not afford the Jewish school, elementary school, but public schools in Boston have become so woke and so out of whack that the parents did not feel that the children were getting a responsible education. So they have their little Jewish children over in the Catholic school where they are very happy with focus on 3 R's and focus on Americanism and discipline. So just a little side story there. So let's focus on, and then third, let's focus on our health. All of us need to focus on our health. Both of my books, Decline of America and Bad Deal for America, are available on Amazon. And you've got displaying my consulting website, which is everything that I do that's not at the university. I just put under one banner, Claremont Management Group. And that is, it's an easy thing because it's just, as the cliche goes, me, myself, and I.
And I just said that today on my post for Facebook, me, myself, and I, right? So see, the universe meant for me to have David today. And David,
Absolutely.
I really just want to thank you for joining me on Teatime and getting these books out there, getting some truth out there, and having a good, clean conversation. This is what we need to start having, is more conversations like this. And getting education out there, and do the research. Do not feel that you do not have the right to do your research. Do your research, guys. And if something doesn't add up, question it. I always tell my kids this: question it. There's no wrong question out there to be asking. So thank you again, David, for joining me on Teatime. It was a pleasure. I'm just going to do a closing summary of what Teatime was today, and then we're going to wrap it up, and we'll be back at 7 p.m. with another returning guest of Randy Lee Boslap, who shall be coming in and talking about mental health and spectrum and all of that good stuff, and her new book as well. So we're going to have a nice, deep conversation again tonight at 7. This afternoon's Tea Time with David Schein has been a thought-provoking reminder of how leadership, when guided by knowledge and integrity, can spark real change. David shared with us not only the challenges we face, but also the opportunities to take action with courage and clarity. His insight leaves us with the encouragement to rise, lead, and serve our communities in meaningful ways. Thank you, David, for returning to Tea Time table and reminding us that the power to shape tomorrow begins with the choices we make today. Thank you guys for joining me on Tea
Thank
Time.
you.